Welcome to the GenX Pole Arts podcast, Fit, Fierce, and Fearless. I am Zen, also known as Nancy Adzentovich, the founder of GenX Pole Arts. I am happy to be launching this podcast where we are going to be celebrating the strength, resilience, and potential of women over 40 in the vibrant world of pole dance. I'm excited to embark on this empowering journey with you guys. And each week, we will connect with inspiring women who are redefining what it means to thrive in their 40s and beyond. From incredible stories of personal transformation to tips on building strength and confidence, we'll explore the boundless possibilities that pole dancing offers for self-expression and empowerment. Whether you're a seasoned dancer or just curious about the journey, there's a place for you here. So grab a cup of coffee, a sparkling water, whatever turns you on, and get comfortable. Let's celebrate the incredible power of women who are embracing their passions and pushing boundaries at every age. And don't forget to subscribe and join our community on social media and sign up for the 15-day pole dance challenge if you haven't done so already. All right, now let's dive into today's episode. Hi, welcome to Fit, Fierce, and Fearless. I am your host, Zen, aka Nancy Adzentovich, and I have a treat for you guys today. I am so excited to be joined by my friend Shay. Shay, welcome to the podcast. I know you're so busy. You have a million irons in the fire, so I appreciate you taking time to do this with me, and I'm really curious to see where our conversation goes because you just have so many interesting points of view. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks for that intro. So my name is Shay, or I also go by Indigo in the pole world, pole performance world. My pronouns are she, her. I am originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is, I like to always share that because it's just a fun fact. But I've been living in Los Angeles for about 11 years. And I have been doing pole dance for 3 years, a little over 3 years. I actually have my pole anniversary is the 15th of November every year, and I celebrate it like I celebrate my birthday because it's that important to me. So yeah, I've been doing it for about 3 years now, and I'm 41, so young Gen X, I guess. Gen Z, I don't know where that stuff confuses me a little bit, but
late
yes,
millennial,
yeah,
or early millennial, young, late Gen X, whatever. You're in the realm.
Elder millennial. Yes, I'm doing lots of reading and studying on perimenopause and all of those things. So that's the age range that I'm in currently. So also kind of found myself in the pole world kind of later on the journey, if you will. I wish I would have started back in grad school when I was very first introduced and interested in it. And I took one class. It was a floor work class, and I had a ton of fun. And then I didn't go back until COVID and pandemic times. So that's just a little bit about my journey.
Yeah. I think COVID, so when I spoke with Dee too, like she started right around the end of COVID. I started right around the end of COVID. I think we had that attitude at that time, like, well, everything is so fucked up. Why don't I just do something completely different and go for it?
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of entering another point in history that feels that way too, right?
Totally. I'm like
not to get
feeling
into that, but
yeah, no, I'm feeling that. I'm like, what's going on right now feels a lot like COVID. So yeah, good time to start pole dancing.
Yes.
For those of you who haven't tried it yet, maybe now's the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So you started pole dancing in your late 30s.
Yeah.
And now you're just entering your 40s.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think might be different for you than if you had started in grad school? Like, what are you finding? Now, I know that you can't go back and you didn't do it then, but like,
yeah, there's like some regret or something that I feel when I hear that question, because when I first was introduced to pole dance, I was in my graduate program. So I'm a graduate. I have my master's degree in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker now, and I've been in the field for about 15 years. So when I first found pole dance, I was in my graduate program, and I was actually going through a divorce at the time, and it was really nasty, and I was not okay. But school just kept me grounded. You know, it was like the one thing that kind of kept me grounded and focused, and one thing that I felt like he couldn't take away from me. So I really threw myself into grad school in a really interesting way. But I wish I would have kept going with pole at that time, because I feel like there was just this untapped well of stuff that I could have tapped into. But for whatever reason, the universe works the way it works, and I didn't really fall in deep until I lived in Denver, Colorado for several years. That's where I went to grad school. And in Denver, I used to have access to mountains, and like really big, beautiful mountains that like
Mm-hmm.
people take care of the trails, and it's, you know.
Yeah.
And when I moved to California, I was like, oh, I'm gonna really miss this. Like I knew, because I used to hike 14ers and stuff. I was really into hiking, and I knew I was gonna miss it. And I knew I was like giving up something pretty profound to move to this gigantic city, and you know. And I didn't really find my physical activity until I found pole. And I think the reason it happened in the time frame that it happened was because of the pandemic, and because I was just stuck at home, and because, you know, I'm pretty well endowed on the bottom side of my body, and was
We
was
love
bored
that. We
bored
love that.
and was bored at home, and was like, I need to learn how to twerk, man. I have all this, like, you know, badonkadonk back here. What am I doing? So
Yes.
I started taking like twerk classes online, like little tutorials. And then, yeah, I was one day just scrolling on Groupon and saw the secrets deal, you know, for pole dance, and just kind of stopped. And I was like, I think it's time for me to go check out a class again. And went and took my first class with Hurricane Saturday, early afternoon with Hurricane. And it just, God, it changed my life. Like, truly, it was so fun. I really needed a physical outlet. I had been so stagnant just because of the pandemic. And yeah, I was just super hooked. So, you know, what's different now versus then is obviously it's like 15 years. You know, I always kind of reminisce and be like, oh my gosh, what could I do now had I started earlier? But also, like, it came to me when it came to me, you know, at the right
Yep.
time. And so just really grateful. And it's just been such a beautiful journey. I can't even, it's hard to put to words. It's more of like feelings that I have when I think about it. But it's been nothing but positive for me in all the ways, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, sexually, like all of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Aw, thank you for sharing that. All
Yeah.
of it. I think it's interesting because we all, when we talk about our journey, we all seem to talk about the emotional and like I don't want to say spiritual, but like it's not the physical necessarily that we talk about. Yes, we get in shape, we get muscles, we, feel stronger, but that doesn't seem to be what any of us ever talk about when we reflect back. We
Yeah.
always talk about like how it has affected our heart and our soul and our psyche and our mental health. And I think that is the surprising thing to me, and I think to most people listening who've never been in a pole studio, it's that profound effect that it has on your psyche,
Hmm.
your self-image, your confidence, like just the way you feel in your body, your connection, and your autonomy over yourself. And you
Hmm.
mentioned that about your divorce, and you didn't do pole at that time, but you felt like your studies were something that couldn't be taken away from you, and you had complete autonomy over that. And I feel like part of the reason that so many of us come to pole when we're at this point of transition in our lives, coming out of relationships or grief, or yes, the pandemic was, everything was out of control, but guess what, when we get in the studio, we are all of a sudden have autonomy and control over our bodies and ourselves, and we're connected. And that is a feeling I don't think I have found any other activity that gives me that same kind of feeling of autonomy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like pole. is like autonomy, it's empowerment, it's freedom, it's connection to my body and soul in a way that nothing else, well, maybe a few other things, but very rare, give me that. And yeah, I never really considered myself an artistic or creative person. I'm with a creative, my partner's a creative. I'm a therapist and I do a lot of work with creatives and artists, and I'm very involved in the entertainment industry here in LA. But like I never fully considered myself like that was not an identity I would wear.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to pole, like I absolutely feel that now and I identify as that because it's connected me to my creativity, my artistic expression, being able to work on a choreography or tell a story through movement. And I've gotten really interested in some of the other aerial arts as well. So it's not just pole, but aerial hoop and hammock and chains and silks. Not my favorite. I'm not a silks girl. Nope.
We love the hoop
Because
though.
it's too technical for me. I really pole for me also is like very much like play. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I never have really liked physical activity that's felt very like technical where I have to use my brain a lot. I like to just go and play and flow, and silks feels complete opposite of that for me. But I'm not here to shit on silks, but you know, for those of you who love silks, yes, do it. That's great. It's just it's not for me. But yeah, I mean, pole has completely changed my life in so many ways. And one of the ways I wanted to mention too is I sustained an injury during the pandemic prior to starting pole dance. I tore my ACL. So I only ever did pole with a messed up knee. Like
Which
my
is so crazy, Shay.
I
So
know.
crazy. I was thinking about Mount Olympus,
Yeah.
which I talked about on the last episode a little bit. So that was the pole show that we did. We had all been polling for about a year-ish when we did
Yeah.
Mount Olympus. And it was like a rated G friendly pole show because we all wanted to be able to show what we'd learned widely with our friends and family and kids and whatnot, because we were super proud and we wanted our
Yeah.
families to be proud of what we accomplished, right? But you were injured and you did it anyway. And I think it
Yeah.
was your first time performing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. And to hear you talk about how you don't or how you didn't in the past consider yourself a creative or an artist
Mm-hmm.
is today mind-boggling to me because
Yeah.
the way you perform, and Shay performs a lot, you guys. Like
Uh-huh.
Shay gets invited to perform all the time, all over Los Angeles, and she's so good. She's so engaging. She's like, when you watch her perform, it's mesmerizing. The
Hmm.
connection that you have with yourself, it's like palpable. The audience can feel it. And it's not just your body, it's your embodiment. It's
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing. And
Yeah.
it's that expression of all those things that you talked about. Like you can feel your soul and your heart
Yeah.
coming out of it and your sensuality because it's sexy as fuck. She does partner choreography too with other dancers. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. If you follow her, and her Instagram handles are in the show notes, but you can see some of her performances. So you are absolutely a creative and
Oh,
an artist, and I'm just saying it here, and it's
thank you.
documented because yes, I can't wait until you are back to
Uh,
performing, and
I
hopefully that's
know. Hopefully soon. I actually, yeah, it's closer than I think, but yeah, like when I did Olympus, I that was my second time injuring that knee actually. So I think I had a partial ACL tear, and then I started pole, and then I had the full tear, and then after Olympus is when I went to the doctor, and they were like, "Yeah, you need surgery or PT," and I was like scared of surgery, so I just was
mm,
like PTing it and having to modify everything I did all the time. And then it got to a place where like my body was really messed up because I was literally training one side of my body only because of my knee
mm,
injury, which is like the number one no in pole. Like
right.
you don't train one side of your body. And so I started getting like pinched nerves and like all these like messed up things. And I went and saw an acupuncturist, and he was like, "Yeah, no, you're all messed up, girl. You're like," so actually seeing the acupuncturist was when I was like, okay, I got to do this surgery. And the reason I went back to the surgery in this story is because I think pole gave me a gift during even the surgery and like the surgery prep, which was like, you've developed such a deep connection and relationship with your body because of this beautiful sport, this beautiful dance, this beautiful activity that you've found and fell in love with. So, like, connect with me while we are going through this journey together, and I will guide you and you will guide me. And I did a lot of like meditations where I would like talk to the cells in my body and like, and I just that like connection with my body, like I don't even think I would have been able to handle the surgery as well as I was able to handle it had I not been a pole dancer. Like, it just, pole is one of those things that just it keeps giving you gifts that like are
Mm,
completely unexpected in all of these ways. And so I just wanted to mention that one because it's been really special.
I think that's beautiful to think of pole as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It keeps popping up in ways that you don't expect, like
Mm-hmm.
different qualities that we pick up from training so hard and from performing and competing, et cetera, show up in different
Mm-hmm.
areas of our lives when we least expect it.
Yeah, absolutely.
My God, I never would have done that or had that reaction or that response, before.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
and the
really
way you
cool.
like the way you train your body and how just it's not even, it doesn't have to, some stuff is like a lot of consistency, you have to be like really really, but a lot of it, if you're just consistent, it just kind of starts happening and you're like, whoa, my body has like a deep well of wisdom that my brain does not. And like
Mm,
being able to connect to the wisdom of your body in that way is just so fucking empowering. I can't even explain. It's like I just want everyone to have that feeling, whether it's pole or not. And as a therapist, right, someone who works with a lot of women who've been through trauma and a lot of LGBT folks who've been through trauma, like I want my clients to experience this too. Like, again, whether it's pole or whether it's whatever it is, but it's like for me, pole has really helped connect me to my authenticity truly as well.
100%.
Like
Mhm.
I full of I show up more fully myself because of pole, like in all the ways, in my relationships, in my identity, in my sexuality, and like I've been more bold about being like who I am and not like afraid. And I think in some ways that's making me even a better therapist because I'm able to like help my clients then tap into that. And so yeah, it's just these like gifts and this ripple effect it's had. I do not know where I would be without it. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I was trying to think about after the conversation with Dee, we talked a lot about feminine energy and how
Mhm.
it unlocked, Pole had unlocked a lot of that for her. Um, Other sports, and I've been an athlete my whole life, right? And I've also been an artist. So I was an actress, I did musical theater, I was a singer, I was a triathlete, I was a swimmer, I was a runner, blah, 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 blah. But there's something about pole where it's the singular aspect. So even when we're doing competition, it's not a competition like a sport where you're trying to beat somebody like tennis or even like a race, running or cycling or whatever. And yes, we have men. Yes, we have a full array of gender expressions as part of our pole community, but I feel like it is still driven and centered around the feminine,
Mhm.
regardless of your gender identity,
Mhm.
because it comes from the origins of pole come from the women who were the hoochie coochie girls and the vaudeville and the burlesque and the exotic women who were forced to show their bodies in this way to exist. And I think that feminine power or the femininity, because it was a female birthed art form, it just carries through. And so I haven't found like doing any of my other sports or arts didn't give me that access to my authentic core, which is for me feminine. And in my life, I have always had a hard time accessing that and tapping into it
Mhm.
because of
Mhm.
the path my life has taken, my career, the whatever. I've always had to be more leaning into the masculine side of things in myself.
Mm-hmm.
But pole really unlocked that ability, I guess, to be more authentic
Yeah.
in the feminine side of it. And I think it's unique in that way. So when I tell people you could try pole and see if it works, but also try, climbing a mountain or doing this, I say that, but I don't really believe it's going to unlock the same kind
Yeah.
of freedom and
Yeah.
autonomy and connection that you
Yeah.
will get from pole.
I love what you're talking about because yeah, I think it does. It taps you into that feminine divine energy that a lot of women and men and non-binary, just humans,
Right.
are disconnected from. And I think
Mhm.
the majority of the people who love pole, I would say, are either female identified or like queer, right? I think,
Yeah.
but there are men that enjoy it too, and I think it's healing. I think it's deeply healing, and as a healer, that's another thing that really attracts me to pole and the power of pole to like create community and help bring out people's connection to their body and to their femininity. And I just feel like the world that we're living in now like needs that energy so badly. And
Mhm.
I'll share a really interesting example of this actually, because last year I was thinking, I'm Capricorn just like Nancy, so we always have
Yes.
lots of ideas and lots of thoughts on the, thing going on all the time. But I started this, I guess, community called Self Love Pole because I was really trying to think of like how I could mesh my world as like a therapist and a healer and like a healing practitioner with pole and be able to like engage people with that side of it. Like this is really about like self-love and connection and connecting to yourself. And anyway, so we're having a retreat over Valentine's Day weekend in Joshua Tree. And we had a mini retreat a couple weekends ago to just like give people a little taste, a little teaser, and
Mhm.
have an offering that wasn't, maybe such a big commitment for people. And someone, I won't say their name just for privacy, but someone reached out on Instagram and they said, this retreat looks really interesting, but I'm male identified. Am I allowed in this space? Which was really sweet. And they said, I'm going through a really hard time. I'm going through a breakup and I feel like I need like more healing spaces. So I'm curious about it. I've never
Beautiful.
done pole. I've never done, and I was like, yes, you are welcome here. So they shared with me later that they were really nervous and that they went and took a pole class just to like prepare for the day. And then at the end of the day, we had a whole series of activities. We had like a sound bath and we had some qigong and we had some meditation and yoga infused into the pole. Anyways, at the end of the day, we kind of did a round table sort of like share, and we got to him, and his share was so sweet and touching, and he just said, I was really nervous to be like invited into a feminine space like this, and like basically the takeaway of what he said was like, I just feel so grateful that I could connect to my feminine energy because I feel like it's what I need to heal. And had I not had this workshop, I would not have been able to like tap into it in that way. And it was so touching and so sweet. And so yeah, I just think like the power of healing and community. I mean, with what we're facing globally, and not to get like political, but it's just the reality. I think we
Mhm.
need this. It's deeply like connected to our existential survival and our spiritual
Yeah.
survival,
Yes. Yeah. True.
So yeah.
I think it's beautiful. What a beautiful example.
Yeah, it
I
was
love that. And I love that you created that space for that to happen.
yeah, yeah.
And this is part of my mission, right? I want to shout it from the rooftops. Like everybody is invited to do this.
Mhm.
And I don't care how old you are. And I feel like once you get into 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, 80s, there are women doing pole in their 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
We've just been through a lot of shit. It just happens. It's just life. And yes, you can go to therapy and you should go to therapy. I'm a total believer in therapy, but we also become disembodied because in our society and our culture, it's not encouraged, especially for women, especially for older women who are conditioned to dislike their bodies.
Mhm.
And so, especially going through menopause, like you mentioned, and perimenopause at the beginning, that we're bombarded with all these messages about how everything about our body is wrong in our
Mm-hmm.
40s and 50s. And now we have to fix it. You have to take
Mm-hmm.
1,000 supplements. You have to change and eat like a million grams of protein. You have to
Yeah.
lift a lot of heavy weights. You have to like do all of these things to be okay. And it's
Yeah.
like you just start hating yourself. You start
Yeah.
hating your body. And it's like, well, you're not going to feel better by hating it. And so
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
self-love pole, I love the language of it and I
Mm-hmm.
love the mission of it.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, if together we can just get this message out there and give people the opportunity to reacquaint themselves with themselves
Yeah.
physically, spiritually, emotionally, and and let them know they don't need permission. That's the other thing that pisses me off. Like, you don't need permission of anybody to connect with yourself and to explore who you are at 45 or 55 or 65 years old. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need that. You're grown.
Mm-hmm.
You've earned the right to know
Yeah.
yourself and to feel comfortable in your body. Um, do you want to talk a little bit more about the retreat you have coming up? Because I think it's really interesting, the different modalities and I want to say healing arts that
Yeah.
you've incorporated together to build this experience.
Yeah, sure. So I'll preface this by saying, I am a licensed clinical social worker, like therapist. That's kind of my training. But the like healing art, I really like that you use the word healing arts because I think that that's really important. I think there's lots of societal stuff and stigma and things that just aren't helpful around like mental health and wellness and healing, and there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens in like the mental health community around like, oh well, they're only a life coach, they're not a therapist, and like there's just a lot of like tearing down of each other in a lot of industries, and it happens in my behavioral health industry as well. And I just want to say that, like, again, with what the world is facing now, we need all healers on deck. Like, if you have any type, this is a message I want to get out in this podcast.
Do it,
If
do
you
it.
have, if you have any inkling of healing at all, whether it's massage, Reiki, yoga, tarot readings, like, I don't, whatever it is that you're called to and you have a skill and a gift, like, use it because the world needs it and there's not enough therapists. And that's a whole soapbox I will steer away from. But anyways, so I preface that by saying, like, I really wanted to create something that could be therapeutic, but also could be open to like lots of healers in our pole community who are also doing healing work and maybe aren't like therapists, like licensed traditional mental health
Right.
therapists. So the retreat is infused. So it's me and two other organizers. And so we're kind of taking all of our strengths and kind of making this offering that has all of them. So one of the other organizers is Shamika, who also is a teacher at Secret. And so we have Shamika coming in and she'll be teaching a pole workshop. And she's also going to be doing some Qigong, which is like an Eastern medicine philosophy of movement, similar to Tai Chi, but different, that kind of uses the breath and body to kind of cleanse different organ systems and things like that. It's really powerful. I was never introduced to Tai Chi, or I'm sorry, Qigong, until the workshop that we just had, and she did some, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. So we have that. And then we have Josie, who is also going to be there and is one of the other co-organizers. And she's trained in all kinds of stuff. She's a body worker. She teaches pole. She's also a circus artist, so she does a lot of the other aerial apparatuses. She dances with fire. There's like nothing Josie can't do. But
I love
Josie
it.
also does like body work and some
Mhm.
somatic healing, and works with herbs and some more like kind of indigenous healing practices, kind of like curandismo stuff. And so we're gonna have some of that there. She also does sound baths, so we're gonna have a sound bath. There's gonna be meditation, yoga. There's gonna be 2 pole workshops and open pole play, and then also a night where people can perform if they'd like. And then we'll also have a photographer there, so people get, a couple professional snaps. So it's pretty inclusive. It's our first time doing this. We're really excited, but we really hope that we can expand it. Yeah, and it just seems like something that people want and need in their life. And I think what sets us apart from different pole retreats is like you can be a complete pole newbie to come. This isn't about like getting better at your tricks or something. It's literally
Right.
about using these like different modalities and healing methods to
Yes.
like connect with yourself, and pole is one of them, in
Yeah.
addition to like all the other ones I mentioned.
And that's what I find beautiful because like we were saying in the beginning, when we talk about pole, we're not talking about the technique behind each trick and like, oh, I really need to get this trick and that combo, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, we have goals of things that we want to learn, but that's not necessarily what keeps us coming back. It's
Totally.
all of these other things that you're talking about. And yes, when you think about pole as being one pathway to healing, just like qigong and sound baths and yoga, and even I think photography. Because one thing that I've found, and not to go on a complete tangent, but I think it's important that you mentioned you have a photographer
Mm-hmm.
because for myself, and tell me if you agree or not, Shay. When I started seeing photos and videos of myself embodied during a pole session, I almost didn't recognize
Yeah.
myself. And to see myself in that way had a profound effect on me and still does as I age and my body changes and blah, blah, blah. When I see myself through that lens, it's transformative. I,
Mm-hmm.
I I never almost never see that and say, oh, ew, or like, like, oh, that's terrible. Or like it's always like, wow, that's a, I look beautiful, or that shape or that movement, or I can't believe it's me. Like you can feel the energy and the power and all of the things that we're talking about that are not tangible. You can actually see it
Yeah.
in the photographs, and capturing that and handing that to somebody
Mm-hmm.
is such a gift. It's a
Yeah.
tangible gift of the intangible, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's so important. And also, I just want to mention Shay talked about Secret, and Shamika's an instructor at Secret, and we mentioned Secret earlier. Secret is the pole studio that we call home, the Secret Pole Dance Studio on the west side of LA. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. Do you have, Shay, like a goal for the people who attend the retreat? Something that you hope they walk
Mm-hmm.
away with? And the reason I'm asking is I'm thinking about how interesting all of those different healing arts are that you've combined the way that you have. And it was done very thoughtfully and mindfully, I know. So, keeping that in mind, what is the outcome you hope people
Yeah,
experience?
that's a good question. I feel like there's a bunch of things I would want them to walk away with. I mean, I think the biggest one is like connection, and like connection to community. Again, been
Mm,
talking like this is a theme, how
yeah,
important this is.
yes.
But also connection to self. Like I really hope that they feel like a deeper connection to themselves as a result. There's going to be time for independent pole play, but also like if they need to go meditate or journal or be by themselves. We're also going to have an art activity just kind of going on throughout the weekend if people need to like step away and go play with the art table. So yeah, so I think connection with self and connection with others, but if anything, like if, even to boil it down a little bit more, I would say I would be so happy if people could leave with just like a new nugget of insight or self-awareness into themselves. Whether that's like, oh, I really need to put up a boundary with this person, or I really need to stop saying yes all the time, or I need to like prioritize myself more, or I need to leave that relationship, or I mean, I don't know. It can be like a huge light bulb insight, or maybe even a small one. But I would just love if everyone could leave with a little gift of like connecting with self and listening to what their selves needs. Yeah.
I think that's a very noble goal.
Yeah.
And given what I know, I think it's very likely everybody will leave having achieved that.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what
Yeah.
happens when you come back and
Thank
we
you.
reconnect on the topic. Well, I feel like community is a big one, but we've already been talking for about 30 minutes, so we might have to do that one on another day.
That's
But just to put a little pin on the community topic, to circle it back to what you said earlier a couple times about everything we're experiencing right now as a global community and as a national community, there is a general feeling of unease and unrest and uncertainty and fear. There's a lot of divisionism happening. People are feeling isolated and divided rather than being pulled together. And that's making for a very fearful climate. And our little community is a respite from that. And I think the more we can open up ourselves to welcome more people into it, the stronger we become. And I watched the Grammys last night. I'm not even like an awards show person, but I I felt so hopeful just hearing what all of the artists had to say. They each used the platform to accept their awards as a means to really give hope to people that we are going to be there for one another and we are going to pull together and we're not kicking anybody out and we're not harming anybody. Like we want to protect each other and we want to be stronger together. And I think community right now is more important than it has ever been, maybe in history. And doing more of these conversations and being open and living in our authenticity and expressing ourselves and putting our art out there and making people feel like we've got you. And like you did to the person who came to your mini retreat, more of that, more of that, more of that. And if I can even be a little part of that, it'll give my life great meaning. And I
Yeah.
feel like you're doing that right now too.
Yeah. Well, I will just say I'm a reflection of you because
Oh,
that's one of the things that you do so well, and one of the reasons you're a dear pole sister of mine is your commitment to our pole community. You're like our pole mama. You've always been that way, and you were like the first person that welcomed me to Secret. Actually, like it was you and maybe a few other people, but I really remember you. I mean, you were so kind and warm and welcoming, and like I mean, you're always like looking out for people and making sure people are
I'm
okay.
blushing.
And sorry, you can cut that out if you want, but
Thank you. No, it's very sweet. It's very sweet.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Shay. I love you.
I love you too.
I'm glad we're in it together.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can probably end it here and maybe we'll do a follow up after the retreat
Okay.
in the spring and kind of get a download and see how that went. And also follow along on your healing of your ACL.
Yes.
Uh,
Thank you.
follow up on that. But wishing you all the best. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. You're so busy and everything you're doing is a bright light in this world. So
Oh,
thank you, Shay.
thank you, Nancy. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fit, Fierce, and Fearless, powered by GenX Pole Arts. I hope you feel inspired by the incredible stories of strength and resilience that we shared today. Remember, it's never too late to embrace your potential and unleash your passion. If you enjoyed this episode, please, I would appreciate it if you would take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave me a review. Your support really helps me to continue to uplift and empower women over 40 in our pole dance community and beyond. Don't forget to connect with me on social media for more inspiration and updates. I'd love to hear your stories and share in your journey. So until next time, keep dancing, keep shining, and remember that your strength knows no age.